everyone, it's Cass. Welcome back to my channel, What Cass Read. Today we're going to wrap up my short filming week and we're going to do the no disclaimers book tag. I've seen this float around recently and I love all the questions, so that's what we're going to do, and here we go. Question number 1 is, which trope or tropes in books annoy you the most? So I don't know if it's necessarily a trope, but it's a pattern I've noticed in fantasy books in general, especially the epic fantasy books. The second book, or the second part in a series, we always find ourselves upon a ship. And our characters take to the high seas, and I get so bored. I get so bored. I've seen it before. Why do we have to go on a ship all the time? We can be more creative than that. Luckily, for you and for me, Robin Hobb lifted me out of that slump. All right, question number 2 is, which writer or writers do you feel are overhyped or overrated? Whoa, controversy. This is A Court of Mist and Fury, written by Sarah J. Maas. I just posted my February wrap-up where I snuck in A Court of Thorns and Roses, written by Sarah J. Maas, the first book in this series. And I have to say, Sarah J. Maas, a little bit overrated. A little bit overhyped. I talked briefly about my theory about this, but she's not super great at writing. I think young adult and new adult readers deserve better. Like, just because they're younger doesn't mean that they won't appreciate fully formed thoughts and sentences. But you would think she's a professional writer. She takes her book to an editor, and they are also professionals. Someone would have caught on to this, and that's where I take my issue, is you argued for this book to be written so poorly. Sarah J. Maas, a little bit overhyped and overrated. Okay, question number 3 what are your least favorite books you've read since joining BookTube? Well, the first least favorite book that I read since joining BookTube was Artemis, written by Andy Weir. I have my gripe review if you would like to check that out. That was one of the worst books that I read through the entire year of 2017. I just felt really disappointed as a reader because I loved The Martian so much, and I feel like I got a carbon copy of Mark Watney in female form, and that Andy Weir took the easy way out of writing a female character. He was not successful in that at all. I rated that book 2 out of 5 stars. I think the only reason why it got 2 out of 5 stars is because I listened to it on audiobook. The audiobook narration by Rosario Dawson was pretty good, so it kept me engaged despite how much I rolled my eyes at the whole story. So that's one of my least favorite reads. I also read The Woman in Cabin 10, written by Ruth Ware. That was just not good. I was really hoping for like a really fun thriller because I had read The Girl on a Train, and they're saying if you like that book, you'll like this book. Hint, hint, wink, wink. That one was 2 out of 5 stars for me as well. And then there's this one. This is The Last Wish, written by Andrzej Sapkowski. This is book number 1 in the Witcher series. I think I gave this 2.5 stars. I just was like, I just don't get it. I kind of blamed the translation. It's translated from Polish to English, so I thought maybe there was just something lost in translation from the language, but it also wasn't what I was expecting. I didn't realize how fairy tale heavy this would be, and I didn't want that. I didn't enjoy. So this is The Last Wish, written by Andrzej Sapkowski. Okay, question number 4 is a terrible ending that ruined an otherwise quality book. So this is Inheritance, written by Christopher Paolini. This is book number 4 in the Inheritance cycle, the 4th and final book. I thoroughly enjoyed this whole series until we got to the ending. This ending is an exact copy of The Return of the King. As I was reading this, I was like, wow, you're really borrowing a lot of inspiration from another epic finale that I've read before. Pretty obvious. And when I was reading it with all my friends from high school, because we were the ones who got into this book in high school, we would talk about this ending and we were like, this is a little bit Return of the King, right? Right? Everybody else got that? Okay. I love this series. I will always recommend it to people, but the ending did let me down. So this is Inheritance, written by Christopher Paolini. Okay, question number 5 is, which fictional character / characters do you wish were not killed off? This is Age of Swords, written by Michael J. Sullivan. This is book number 2 in the Legends of the First Empire series. Now, if you haven't read this and you want to, because I know a couple of people have recently picked this up, just mute until I take this book off the screen, because I really don't want to spoil this character death for you. But I am talking about Minna, the wolf. It really took a lot out of me when Minna and Suri kind of come to this realization that Minna's gonna have to die to be able to save them in the cave, and there's a bit of magic that takes place but Minna is the actual sacrificial wolf, not sacrificial lamb, but she's a sacrificial wolf in this situation, so that way they're able to get out of the cave that they're in. It's really cool what happens to her and the connection to the whole Rhaeria revelations. Just what she becomes is really cool, but I wasn't ready to let her go, so I really wasn't ready to let her go. So I'm talking about Minna, and this is Age of Swords, written by Michael J. Sullivan. What are some of your bookish pet peeves? And I'm actually going to link that, I think it's up this side. I'm going to link that up top because I actually did an entire video about my bookish pet peeves. So if you want to know my bookish pet peeves, you can go ahead and watch that. Question number 7, what are some books that you feel should have more recognition? Well, we might as well talk about Rhaeria Revelations. This is Theft of Swords. This is book number 1. I love Michael J. Sullivan's writing. I love his story so much. It's one of those like fantasy light series. If you want epic fantasy, but you don't want to be bogged down by a lot of things, a lot of extra things, Michael J. Sullivan just kind of cuts the fat off and leaves you with a really, really great story. I know a lot of people begin this one, but then they don't continue with the series, and I am telling you, continue. And this right here, this is Ship of Magic, written by Robin Hobb. Now, I know Robin Hobb gets a lot of praise on book 2 by fantasy readers, but for the people who dabble in fantasy, here's why I think it should have more recognition. A lot of people will start with The Assassin's Apprentice and then stop and not continue. And I am telling you, if you just want to dabble in Robin Hobb, but you don't want to get suckered into the 16-book Realm of the Elderlings entire series, but you just want some quality fantasy writing and you've heard so many great things about this author, just pick up the Live Ship Traders. Just start with Ship of Magic. I have an entire spoiler-free review, actually, of all 3 books in the Live Ship Traders trilogy, and it is one of the best trilogies that I have ever read in my life. This is a top trilogy for me, and it starts with this book. You want to read the Live Ship Traders, and I'm willing to throw this out there that if you actually read the Live Ship Traders trilogy and you get to that end of that series and you don't want to go back, then you can let me know and tell me how wrong I was to recommend this book, but I don't think that'll be the case. Okay, question number 8 is, what are your thoughts on censorship and banning books? Obviously, I'm against it because I'm a reader, but here's why I'm against it specifically. I don't believe that reading should be a luxury only for people who can afford it. And so I think it's super irresponsible for libraries, specifically school libraries, public libraries, to be banning books, because there are many families out there whose sole access to books is through a public library, a publicly funded library of some sort. And if they are a family who's paying taxes to go into that library and that educational system, that's where their tax dollars are going, and they should have access to books. And just because they can't afford to go on Amazon and order a book, I think they should not be kept from reading the books that they are interested in. This comes to mind specifically because of The Hate U Give, written by Angie Thomas. I live in Texas. There is a school district in Texas near Houston that did end up banning this book from their public school library. I work in higher education with a lot of first-generation low-income students. In the K-12 educational system in Texas, if their families are paying taxes to go to that school, and that school deprives them from the resources that they may not be able to afford otherwise, I think that's super irresponsible of the school district to be banning an important book that has a direct effect on their student population. And I was so livid when I heard about that banning of that book in Texas. Reading should not be a luxury for only those who can afford it. And because I'm in a place right now in my life where I can go onto Amazon and order a $10 book, some of my students can't, and I would like them to be able to read that book. So those are my thoughts on censorship and banning books. All right, and then the final question is question number 9, who do you tag? I take whoever wants to do this tag. Just do it, just jump on it. That's what I always do. I like doing tag videos, so if you're one of those people that likes to do tag videos, just go ahead and do it. And then of course, if you want to follow me on social media, go ahead and find me on Instagram and Twitter. That's where I am, at WhatCastRead. It's the same as this channel, so it's super easy to find. And you can also find me on Goodreads if you like that over other social media platforms, and that link is always going to be down below. Otherwise, you know how these videos end. I'll talk to you later. Bye.